We have some major breaking news to get to here on this Tuesday edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report, as reigning Offensive Player of the Year Christian McCaffrey, who finished top 5 in MVP voting last year, put together a marvelous, spectacular, and dominant season and has been the 49ers offensive MVP the last 2 years, is signing a massive contract extension with San Francisco. I'm Chase Sr. This is the 49ers Report. This is why you hit that subscribe button down below, because when breaking news happens, we talk about it right here on the show. And you think back to that trade at the NFL trade deadline 2 years ago for the Niners. When they made the move for Christian McCaffrey, they gave up some draft capital in order to get him, and considering they gave up some quality draft picks, and they had to pay him a lot of money on the remaining contract that he signed with Carolina, a lot of people did not like that move for San Francisco. I had talked about it in the lead up to the trade, that was a move that I thought could change the complexion of this Niners offense. I looked at McCaffrey not as a running back, but as a weapon, and that's a move that I wanted the Niners to explore, because I thought that the added dimension of his running ability and his pass-catching ability was really going to go a long way in taking this offense to the next level. And in hindsight, what a move that has been for San Francisco. It really is a move that has changed the offense. He's been such a great player. He's meant so much to Kyle Shanahan's offense, and in what they want to do, he's fit in seamlessly as a runner, as a pass catcher, and that trade has ended up being franchise altering, and that trade has ended up being an absolute steal. And it was reported earlier today that McCaffrey was going to show up to Niners mandatory minicamp in Santa Clara after having not been at the previous 2 weeks of OTA sessions. And this situation, very similar to what we saw last week with Juwan Jennings, who also did not show up to week 1 of OTAs. Jennings reported to OTAs, and you're thinking, okay, he didn't sign that RFA tender. Is a deal coming? McCaffrey doesn't show up to OTAs. He reports to mandatory minicamp. Is a contract coming? And he ends up getting a bag here. But I was crazy, and people rip me apart on social media. You were coming at me in the comment section for bringing up the conversation and theorizing that McCaffrey may not have been present at OTAs, not because he had a wedding in June. By the way, he has a wedding in June. He's still reporting to mandatory minicamp in June. So to me, that was never really a part of the conversation. What was a part of the conversation is because McCaffrey was probably seeking a new deal or guaranteed money, because he had no guaranteed money left on his previous contract, and he was deserving of a pay bump or a new deal. And on yesterday's show, after the post-June 1 money came in, $18 million from the Eric Armstead release, we talked about here on the show how the Niners had $25 million in cap space, and that money could be used for a McCaffrey contract extension. And part of it is Mike Florio breaking the news of Pro Football Talk, Adam Schefter with some details here, some information from Florio, who has some inside track to the McCaffrey camp, because he had reported not going to be at OTAs, then he reported he was going to be at minicamp, then he dropped the nugget that a contract was coming for the reigning Offensive Player of the Year. Per a league source, the 49ers and McCaffrey have reached agreement on a 2-year contract extension. He's now under contract for the next 4 years. So McCaffrey was already under contract for 2 years through 2025, as we had discussed here on the show. The 2-year extension is on top of that. The extension has a new money average of $19 million per year. McCaffrey was already the highest paid running back in the sport. He resets his own market and resets the running back market here, $19 million in average annual value. McCaffrey is set to turn 28 years old on Friday. He originally had signed a 4-year, $64 million extension in early 2020 after his 3rd season with the Carolina Panthers. When he was traded to the Niners during the 2022 season, his contract was not changed. And now it is, and that's probably why McCaffrey was looking to get a new deal here. And then Adam Schefter with some more intel too, he tweeted out reigning offensive player of the year Christian McCaffrey once again has reset the running back market, signing a 2-year extension, the $19 million in average annual value. And then some more information here. He'll receive an additional $8 million over what he was scheduled to make in the first 2 years, while adding $24 million in guaranteed money. So there's the guaranteed money there that McCaffrey was probably looking for. The deal was negotiated and confirmed by WME Football. And you think back to that trade, right? The 49ers once traded a second, third, and fifth round picks, I should say, plural, not singular, to Carolina for Christian McCaffrey. And in 22 total games with the Niners, McCaffrey has totaled 2,711 rushing yards, more than 1,200 receiving yards, and 39 total touchdowns. Outside of quarterbacks, Christian McCaffrey has been the best offensive player in the National Football League since the Niners acquired him. And that's why I go back to that point of this trade has been franchise-altering, and it's been a steal for the Niners. Now they have to pay for that past performance, which is a little bit of a risk here, but this contract extension will now go through the 2027 season. This makes sense for McCaffrey, of course. This makes sense for the Niners because you keep around a premium player who I think has the opportunity to age pretty well because of the versatility to his game, the athlete that he is, and how seriously he takes his craft. Of course, anytime you're paying a running back this much money who's going to be 28 years old, it's a little bit of a risk. But is he going to be able to age a little bit more gracefully because of the style in which he plays with? He did have a couple of injury-plagued seasons with Carolina. Injuries have not reared their ugly head with San Francisco. And the other talking point here is that the Niners continue to be very, very aggressive in their team-building strategy. Another question here. What does this mean for Brandon Ayuk? Brandon Ayuk not reporting as of right now to Niners mandatory minicamp. Nick Bosa last year was not at mandatory minicamp. So Brandon Ayuk now is subject to getting fined by San Francisco for not showing up to these mandatory workouts. The Niners still have plenty of cap space. If you give Fred Warner a contract extension, that can free up $13+ million each of the next 3 years, and you can always pull off these financial gymnastics, the salary cap gymnastics in which you can massage the cap in order to be able to afford players like McCaffrey. You can still pay Brandon Ayuk, and you're still going to be able to afford Brock Purdy. Lastly, looking at what McCaffrey's been able to do, 2022 season in totality, both with Carolina and with San Francisco. He played 11 games with the Niners after that trade. 1,100+ rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, 67 rushing yards per game, and then he added 85 catches, 741 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's going to go down as one of the best dual-threat running backs in the history of the game, one of the best offensive players in the history of football. And it was really hard for him to duplicate what he did that previous year. He did it, he surpassed it, and he was even better. 1,459 rushing yards. He averaged up to 5.4 yards per carry. Average yards per game on the ground, 91.2. 7 rushing touchdowns. And then on top of that, just a really good receiving threat. 14 rushing touchdowns, 7 receiving touchdowns. And on top of that, he adds 564 receiving yards. So just a truly unique, dynamic player who's ended up being just a massive, massive piece for San Francisco here. I'm about to go live on the 49ers Report. By the time that you're watching this, you can join us right now live on the show. We're talking about that. Live minicamp updates. Do not miss that. This is why you subscribe. And hit that bell icon. Turn on those notifications because when breaking news happens, baby, we talk about it. And I was ahead of this before anybody else. That's also why you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Y'all are the best. The faithful rocking with us on a Tuesday.